Let's begin with the stages of the budget cycle. What are the 4 stages of the budget cycle?
The first stage is formulation stage.
Formulation, thank you. Somebody else give me another one? Yes. Sorry?
Approval.
Approval? Yes, Vincent.
Implementation.
Implementation? Yes.
Audit.
Audit. What happens during the approval stage?
Passing any given policy into a law.
The executive proposes and the assembly approves. So before they approve, they amend. Yes? So who is in charge of implementation?
Exactly.
The executive. Okay. So what happens? The budget is formulated by the executive. It goes to the assembly for amendment and approval, and then it goes back to the executive for implementation, right? And what else is supposed to be happening during implementation? The legislature oversees. We move to the final stage, and who is responsible for that stage?
There's Office of Auditor General.
The Office of the Auditor General, okay. At the national level, we have a Public Accounts Committee and a Public Investments Committee. Those are the 2 oversight committees that receive audit reports. The Public Accounts Committee receives the main audit reports. The Public Investments Committee receives the state corporation audit reports.
What are the main stages of the budget process? Formulation stage, that is the first one. The second one, yes, Akinyi, approval. The third one, yes, implementation stage. And the final one, who wants to give it a try? Yes, audit stroke oversight.
So now what I want to do is talk about the documents that are at the heart of this process, okay? There are sort of 7 key documents that we want to talk about when we look at the process. We are actually have divided one of those documents into 2, so that makes 8 of these cards that I'm holding. All right, so take a minute to look at your card. Then I want you to take your card and come and put it here in the stage that you think it corresponds to.
My card reads County Budget Implementation Report. This one will fall under implementation. The budgets have been approved. Now the implementation is ongoing. And as we are all aware, these reports are supposed to be produced quarterly.
Okay, so these are county executive reports.
Yes.
On county budget implementation produced on a quarterly basis. Implementation stage.
Yes.
Thank you.
County budget review and outlook paper.
Yes.
Review sections.
Okay.
This one is produced after the budget. That is 30th of September.
Okay. So it is an implementation document,
Yes.
and it is. And what is it? What is it reviewing?
It is reviewing the whole document of the budget.
This county budget review and outlook paper, outlook section.
Okay. So this is the same document, but a different part of that document.
It's basically give a forecast of the budget of the next year, giving whether the projection that we have put in place are going maybe to be achieved. So it is in formulation.
Formulation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Next, we have a county budget proposal estimate. This is a document that is produced on February 28th. In the national level, it is also called budget policy statement, and it incorporates estimate basing on sector, what the government or the county is going to allocate before it is approved. Then it is put under formulation stage.
So this document actually comes a little bit later than the document you are talking about. Okay? But it is part of the formulation stage of the budget. The analogous document at the national level is the national budget proposal or the national budget estimates. So you can put it under formulation?
We have the county physical strategy paper, which comes at the 28th of February. It is found at the formulation stage.
Okay.
This one has to work hand in hand with the annual budget, looking at the previous revenues and expenditures in that budget, and also it has to work hand in hand with the ceilings set in the next financial year.
Great. So that document comes before the estimates in February, but it's also part of the formulation stage. We'll talk in detail about all of these in a moment.
County audit report comes at the last stage of audit. It's a report produced by the Auditor General.
Okay.
County Appropriation Act. This comes after the approval of the budget.
Okay, it is approved by the County Assembly. Thank you.
County Annual Development Plan. It is the first document to be produced in September. I think it's fast, and it is extracted from the County Integrated Development Plan.
Okay, so it is part of of which stage?
Formulation.
Thank you, everyone. I want us to now walk through exactly what is happening with each of these documents and when. We begin with what? Yes, Kongin.
The budget circular.
The budget circular, thank you. When does the budget circular come?
30th August.
30th August. Okay, and what does the budget circular say?
It gives out the steps in all the budgeting process.
Okay, the steps in the budget process. What else do we get from the circular? Opportunities for public participation. Good. What else?
It announces the start of the budgeting process.
Okay, yes. So we kick off the budget process. We have opportunities for public participation. We have some guidance about how the budget process is going to roll out, the budget calendar. So there's some rough guidance at this point about the kinds of things that we expect each sector to prioritize. So as sectors put together proposals, they should be thinking about what is in the circular, what was the guidance, okay? We immediately then move to the annual development plan. The annual development plan comes on September 1st. It is produced by the executive, tabled in the assembly. It is like a draft budget and is meant to be like an extract of the CIDP. It should be program-based. It should provide a budget for goods and services. It should provide a budget for major capital spending. Okay? It should identify priorities at the sector level for the year. Okay? So this document goes to the assembly, and then what happens to it? Goes to the assembly on September 1st, and then what happens? It must be made public. And when does the assembly have to approve it?
To the County Assembly for its approval and send a copy to the Commission on Revenue Allocation and the National Treasury. Part 4, the County Executive Committee member responsible for planning shall publish and publicize the annual development plan within 7 days after its submission to the County Assembly.
So, there's no date for approving the annual development plan. What happens after this? After the assembly does or does not approve the ADP, then we move to County Budget Review and Outlook paper. Okay, so you saw that we divided the Budget Review and Outlook paper into two, right? It has a review and an outlook. Okay, so what is the outlook doing? Yes?
Revenue targets.
Okay, revenue targets. Anything else?
Expenditure targets.
Revenue targets, expenditure targets. Anything else?
Gives the projected ceilings for
the next financial year.
Okay, say more about those projected ceilings. Ceilings for what?
For each sector.
Okay, and what is the ceiling?
So the ceiling is the maximum within which a sector is going to spend. The maximum amount of the budget that it's going to receive for the next financial year.
Okay. The reason that we have review and outlook is because we are trying to make the connection between how we spend and how we are going to spend. Okay? It is sent to the cabinet by the end of September, and then it is sent to the assembly, and then it is made available to the public. What happens next?
There is something known as sector working groups. Those working groups are supposed to look at what they have achieved in the previous financial year or the previous years, and then what they intend or what they want to achieve in the current financial year, and then they look at the specific projects or programs that they want to do, and then look at the resources that they've been given to achieve those programs and activities.
One of the key things that the sector is supposed to do is that it is supposed to bring together all the state actors in a sector to debate for themselves what is most important within our sector. The second thing they are doing is they are preparing what is called a bid. The bid is basically saying 10% is nice, but it's not enough. For us, we need 20% to do everything that we want to do in the sector. That is what we are doing from October until February 28th. Because the final sector ceilings are the ones which appear in the county fiscal strategy paper. Okay? So we have moved from the county budget review and outlook paper to the county fiscal strategy paper. This is the core of the budget process. This is when the most important decisions are made in the budget process. You can see this because there are two things that are happening. One is overall revenue expenditure deficit, that's all being said here, plus the sector distribution is being set. But the sector distribution that is being set is based on these proposals from the sectors. So it is not just arbitrary. It is not just that we say, you will get 10%, you'll get 20%. The basis for the 10% and the 20% is also those bids, those proposals. So at the same time that we're setting the sectors, we are also already beginning to tell you what the breakdown will be in terms of programs and projects. If later in the process you now try to adjust the revenues down because you think the own revenue estimates are unrealistic, suddenly you will have a gap in your budget because you have already set the expenditure side. Okay? Which would mean that you have to revisit the entire budget again, which means that we have wasted all of our time. So we do not do that. We set the revenue, total expenditure, sector distribution in the fiscal strategy paper. Okay? Technically, those things should not change again in the process. So then we move to the final bit of the formulation stage, which is between the middle of March and the end of April, which is when we develop this document, which is given to the assembly. So this is also one of those bridging documents. It could actually also come over here because the estimates go to the assembly to be amended and approved in the form of the Appropriation Act. All right, so the estimates are tabled on April 30th, and then the Assembly has 2 months to review them, amend them, and approve them, and we said that the estimates are tabled in the Budget and Appropriations Committee. The Budget and Appropriations Committee organizes public hearings, then they generally make a report to the full House, and the full House accepts or rejects that report, and then they amend the budget. And at the end of that process, we have the Appropriation Act. It is the budget, it is the law that authorizes the county executive to begin to spend against the budget lines at the department level and at the program level. So the idea behind a program-based budget is to shift from the input focus to an output and outcome focus. Okay. And therefore, we try to organize the budget not around inputs and departments, like in the old budget, but around programs and objectives. The programs are essentially sets of activities with a common objective. So that is what the Appropriation Act does. Then the county goes ahead to spend against those items, okay, against those objectives. So we move into the financial year from July 1st. So as we go into implementation, we had two documents that we put here, okay? This one we already discussed, the budget review and outlook paper. It was the review part. That is essentially the end of the review of implementation as we move into the next cycle, because we are looking at the full previous year. But as we implement, we will also have quarterly reports, okay? Which are these. And those quarterly reports will tell us how are we doing as we go along, okay? And then we move into the final stage of this process, which is audit or audit and evaluation, okay? So the law says that within 3 months of the end of the year, all of the ministries and departments have to avail statements to the audit office, showing what they spent and giving all their information. And then the auditor has until the end of the calendar year, December 31st, to actually complete the audit. This is true for both the national level and the counties.